All right, guys, Ronnie and Anna here with Cold Blood Creations. We are back again. We're going to answer what is probably a very controversial question.
Very. Today we're answering, can I cohabitate bearded dragons together?
And if you ask this question on a Facebook group, you're probably going to get cussed out.
Oh yeah, you're going to get blocked.
Or banned, kicked out, shoot something. It's a very controversial question, and so many people, I've seen it asked in like moderated Facebook groups and things like that. And usually when people ask it, I mean, they really do come under fire. There's people out there that are just like, absolutely not. Better not ever post a picture of two bearded dragons in the same cage together. Or,
and they've probably owned a bearded dragon for like 6 months and think that they're an expert now, so.
Yeah, that's usually the case with most Facebook groups. But we're going to answer this question like this. Yes, you can. No, you can't. There are two sides to this story, and we're actually going to give you both sides. We're going to give you our opinion based on the many years we've worked with these animals. And once you have all of the information, then you can decide whether or not cohabitating bearded dragons is right for you. Instead of us telling you what to do, we're just going to equip you with some information. First of all, yes, you can, and no, you can't. Yes, you can. It has been done. We cohabitate bearded dragons here at our facility. We know many other professional breeders that house their bearded dragons not only in pairs, but sometimes in small groups. We know several private keepers who have successfully cohabitated bearded dragons. So can it be done? Yes, absolutely. It can be done.
But we got to be... There's many variables.
Yeah, we got to be honest about those variables because... Yeah. Those variables are they're what I like to call risk assessment. You can cohabitate dragons, but you can't do it without risk.
Yeah.
And so we want to assess those risks, tell you what those risks are, and then once again, allow you to decide. Now, the first thing I think about would be bullying, right?
Right. Well, I mean, there's several factors that kind of go into it, like the sex of the bearded dragon, the size of the bearded dragon kind of causes some of the bullying. So like, for instance, if you have two bearded dragons that are not the same size, there's definitely going to be some bullying going on there. They'll probably fight over the food that's in the food bowl. They'll fight over the basking light or the spot underneath the basking light. And sometimes dragons can just be mean and just bully because one is so much bigger than the other. So they might start biting each other, biting at their feet, biting at their tails. We've seen it before. We cohabitate our baby bearded dragons together, but as they get bigger, we don't house more than 3 or 4. That's like our max limit. And then as they become adults, I typically will keep 2 females together and keep an eye on them, which is another big thing we'll talk about in a minute. But that's usually how we cohabitate. So in order to reduce the amount of bullying, just make sure that the dragons are relatively the same size and you're giving them plenty of food and plenty of room underneath their basking lights. And if you have to, you can even give them multiple basking lights as long as it's not taking up the entire enclosure.
Basically, when you're dealing with the animal kingdom, there's 2 rules of thought. An animal's thinking that's small enough that I can eat it, or that's big enough that it can eat me. If a small bearded dragon can fit in the mouth of an adult bearded dragon, that's probably where he's going to end up at.
Yes.
So if you're cohabitating your dragons, if you choose to do so, you got to make sure they're the same size, or else one of them very likely to get eaten or even to get bitten. Now, we've seen animals over the years that has tail nips from, babies having mistaking the tip of the tail for like a mealworm or something. They'll bite each other's tails off. The other thing, I have over the years seen dragons that had complete feet amputated from the bite of a cage mate. So there are those risks associated with bullying, cage aggression. Now, like she said earlier, and like I said earlier, we have done it. We've done it successfully. But we have one advantage here at our facility as many professional breeders who actually do this for a living. We have an advantage over, say, a private keeper at home because we work with these animals all day, every day. We keep a visual eye on them. We see what's going on. If there's any bullying, things like that, we're able to recognize it. Whereas if you have more of a busy lifestyle, like a college student, you work all day, you're going to be at home, you're going to be away from your dragons. If you cohabitate them and there's a problem during the day, you're probably not going to know it. So if you're the kind of person that, you only see your dragon on the weekend, you don't pay attention to them a great deal of time, then I would say absolutely cohabitating is certainly not for your lifestyle. I would highly recommend that you don't do it if that's the case.
Yeah, especially if you introduce them together at a later age. Now, if you are raising two bearded dragons together from the moment that they hatch out of the egg, I mean, usually you're never going to have any problems because that's all they ever know is that they have a little roommate. But if you introduce a dragon to another one and they're
roommate.
a little roommate. But if you have a dragon that's been in its enclosure for a while just by himself and he's used to having it to himself, and then you introduce another dragon, a lot of times that's when you're going to have problems. Now, you can introduce two strangers together and they'll be fine. But every now and then you'll have a dragon that is very dominant, very territorial, and doesn't want a roommate.
Yeah. So, once again, those are things you're going to notice if you're there constantly, being able to watch and view.
You'll notice those behaviors pretty much immediately. So that's why keeping an eye on them is really important.
Yeah. And the other thing is sexes. It's easier to cohabitate two female bearded dragons than it is to cohabitate two males, which is almost a complete no-no. If someone asks me, can I keep two males together? My recommendation on that is to never do that. Males are territorial, males are dominant, males will fight. I do know one person that raised two male bearded dragons together from babies and was successful.
Yeah.
Neither of those dragons got hurt, but I would say that is the exception, not the rule.
It's extremely rare.
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend doing it at all. The other thing is, if you're going to cohabitate, you're going to need multiple basking spots because like Anna stated earlier, they're going to compete over prime basking locations. If you got two dragons, it would be nice for them not to have to fight over which spot's the best. They can each have their own basking platform or something. That's going to require a bigger cage. Feeding time, again, you want to make sure there's not food aggression. You may have to feed them in two separate parts of the cage. Now, if you put a male and a female together and cohabitate those, almost assuredly you're going to end up with some fertile eggs. If you don't want them, it's pretty much as simple as toss them in a freezer, and that will make sure that you don't have any babies. You don't have to incubate them. However, I will tell you this, and this is something we've seen this time and time again at our facility. When you put a male in a female dragon's cage, he only has one thing on his mind, and he does it, and it's not politically correct, to say the least. There's no romancing, there's no candy, there's no flowers. It's pretty quick and aggressive on the male's part. I personally would not want one of my female dragons housed year-round with a male, simply because I believe the stress of him constantly wanting to breed her is going to cause her a lot of health problems. So I personally would not recommend housing a male and a female together. In fact, if you're going to cohabitate, my only recommendation is if you're sure you have two females.
Yes. It's probably the safest route you can go. And we cohabitate males and females during the breeding season, and then after that, they are completely separated and they don't see each other anymore.
Now, once we know for a fact that a male and a female has bred, we separate them once again because of the stress associated. These males are very alpha. They're very aggressive when it comes to breeding, and so that's the reason why we put them together, to let them breed, and then they're separated again. So can you cohabitate dragons? Yes, you can. Can you do it safely? Yes, it can be done. Is it risky? Yes, there are some risks associated with it. Once again, bullying, food aggression, unwanted eggs, all these things, unwanted offspring that you could potentially have two males combating, fighting each other. My biggest recommendation would be not to do it, but I'm not going to tell you that it can't be done. It can be done. Once again, we do it here at our facility. We know other people that do it. There's a lot of private keepers out there that have proven it can be done, but it is risky. You have to ask yourself, am I willing to assume that risk? And if you end up with an injured dragon, are you willing to assume the financial responsibility of taking care of that animal appropriately? So anyway, this is the information we've got for you guys. We're going to let you make the decision. We're not here to tell you what to do with your animals. So thank you for watching. You got anything else?
I think that'll do it. If y'all have any more questions, just comment below and we'll see y'all in our next video.
Have a good one.